Here we go, episode 151 of the Trash Talk Business Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Andy Weins, owner of Camo Crew, responsible junk removal right here in Butler, Wisconsin. This is my chance every week to come together with you to grow, scale, and build our junk removal dreams. This week, we got our guest, Austin Riley, coming to us from Texas-ish. Is that Texas? Where?
Yeah.
They're okay. Texas, I wasn't sure. I was guessing. That's how much I do my research, as we know. So, Austin, welcome to the show. What brings you here today?
Hey, I was just coming on to talk about the summit, the recycling summit we did a couple months back. Just kind of tell you what I've implemented so far and some resources I've come up with since that summit, just to kind of better handle some of the trash I'm taking in here. So,
I love it. Let's start first. So you came up. All right, there we go. All right, so you came up here. What were some of your biggest aha moments from being here? You spent 48 hours hanging out, watching, seeing what we do here. What were some of your top takeaways?
So honestly, when I heard how you run trucks up there, having two trucks going in tandem up, to me it didn't make sense. I came directly from owning a moving company as a franchise to doing junk, and so for me, I'm sitting here thinking, okay, insurance for the trucks, the paying the guys, all this, I didn't see how it could be profitable or very efficient at all. Honestly, it just kind of so coming up there, seeing how the operation works, and it's definitely changed how I'm doing everything here. Like I'm going to start from the beginning, doing a similar model in that you have two trucks running in tandem, because as we were sitting there, like I said, they never came back to the shop. They didn't have to drop stuff off. It was, they went and did whatever jobs they had that day. And then at the end of the day, obviously come unload the trucks. And it was, honestly more efficient than what it would be running just a solo truck and having to make a whole bunch of different stops. So that was probably the biggest aha moment for me there. And then in regards to recycling, just the full spectrum of what can be recycled. I kind of had this tunnel vision of what could be recycled, and so to see your operation there, to know just how far everything is getting broken down, and that there is somebody out there for for, like I said, 80% of what you got going on there. So, but yeah, no, it was just really good to see that in person, and makes it more where I can wrap my mind around a little bit better there. So
what have you changed in your practices since seeing our facility back in October?
Yeah, so I've got a tire guy. So obviously you could take it to like Discount Tire, and mine here, they charge me $3 a tire. But I actually got a tire guy now who will come with his trailer, load it up from my place, and take it to get recycled. And he's about the same cost. It's just more of a convenience thing there. And so I've got an actual tire guy. And then as far as I've been in contact with the local Habitat, Goodwill, a few other facilities around here, and getting where I could drop off certain types of furniture, decorative stuff, clothes, to where like a lot of stuff I just kind of honestly just threw it away because I didn't have a source for it. I honestly didn't even know that we had a Habitat that was as close to me as it is, and now it's just kind of getting an understanding of what they will and won't take, and then make sure to have somewhere for it to go if they won't take it. And I've actually got an electrical guy, so like for e-waste type stuff, computers. He mainly does gaming type stuff and a few computers. So like he won't take TVs, obviously older computers, stuff like that. There's certain things he won't take. So just trying to at least get some of it taken care of for now, and then work on expanding my network there. And then as far as metal, I've always been taking metal, but now I'm getting more and more into sorting it like y'all had it up there. Maybe not just quite to that scale, just because I don't have the place to store a whole bunch of stuff. So, but as long as it's, like I said, as long as it's keeping it out of the landfill, if they make a little extra buck off me because they sort it after I drop it off or whatever, then hey, yes, it's obviously I'm missing out on that now, but the big picture is just to keep it out of landfill. And then, but I'm also having my kids. I got 3 kiddos that are homeschool, and they help me sort and break some stuff down. So they're learning that aspect of it as well. So, but yeah, no, that's kind of what I've got going on right now. I know there's a company down in Dallas that does mattresses, but I'm trying to figure out a better way of doing that. Um, but yeah, that's what I've got so far.
How old are your kiddos?
Yeah, so I've got Hudson is my oldest son. He's 10. And I've got Presley. She's my daughter. She's 7. And then I've got Leighton. He's my youngest. He's 5.
Yeah, so somewhere in that range, 6, 7, 8 is when I started taking things apart. Then my dad would bring home from job sites. He was a remodeler, so faucets and sinks and doorknobs and things of that nature. And then eventually it also turned into things he picked up on the side of the road. So I fell in love with it back then with the screwdriver and a hammer, taking things apart. I got to sit in the driveway of my parents' house and just taking things apart. And I took apart everything.
Yeah,
I took apart VCRs and microwaves. I wanted to see how everything was made and what was it made out of. And then also obviously take
yeah,
apart like lock sets, understanding which lock sets were die cast, what parts were pieces were brass versus steel,
mhm,
and which ones were made correctly. Like I just take apart thousands of lock sets. My father puts doors in for a living, so he would just have
yeah,
buckets and buckets and buckets of lock sets, and I would just 5-gallon bucket, dump it on the table, sort it, throw all the handles in one spot, and then I would break all the handles down and know which ones were worth breaking down and which ones weren't, and it was by trial and error. I'd spend 15 minutes taking apart a lock and like, all right, let's never do that again.
yeah,
Versus some of the older ones, it's like 3 screws and you end up with 2 pounds of brass. And you're like, all right, well, that was worth $5 in 2 minutes. That was worth it. And so
right.
it's good at that age with the kids to teach them the basics. And I grew up loving going to scrap yards. So, metal
Yeah,
recycling facilities, as I call them now, but going to scrap yards as a kid, the smell of, beer cans and soda cans getting crushed and the sound of machinery. Like there's a feeling in the scrapyard where I was like, oh, I'm a man. Um, and
yeah,
I've been obsessed with uh, industrial everything ever since. Every industrial
mhm,
park, every building I can get in. Even years working at waste management, I would be in the trash room and the mechanical rooms of all these buildings. Like I find those a lot more fascinating than the conference rooms and the boardrooms personally. And so I got that at a young age. So what you're doing with your kids, it's good and it's worthy. It gives them opportunity to learn a real skill set and maybe um, tap into or create a desire, to get in this industry in some way, shape, or form.
okay,
Most
yeah,
most scrapyards are multi generational because the kids grew up with it. There's not a lot of kids that grow up outside of without exposure to scrapyards that are like, oh yeah, I want to go work there.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
you're in and around it, or at least maybe not work there, but own it and build it and develop it. Normally comes from kids of scrapyard owners, and a lot of times they're third or
right.
fourth generation.
You're right. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, they and it too. It's like I said, like I tell them, is like it's something that no matter what happens in life, there's always going to be where you can go scrap, right? You can go break things down if you
Mhm.
need money. If you need money, you can always find a way to make some. Whereas my mom when I was growing up, she taught me how to siphon gas out of cars with a water hose. She's like, hey, if you're ever out of college, if you're running out of cash, this is the way you can get home, type of thing. And
Well,
I
I mean,
figured this would be a little
that's theft. I mean, that's slightly different.
I didn't say it was the best option, but but yeah, no.
Oh,
So I figured this was
we learned how to do that in the military, quick, fast, in a hurry. How to siphon gas? Yeah. Uh,
yeah, yeah,
don't get in your fucking mouth, kid. That's
yeah,
yeah, yeah. It happens to the best of
yeah,
us.
yeah. That's a taste you remember for sure.
Oh my god. Yeah.
Yeah,
All right. Well,
no,
that
but
took me down memory lane that I didn't want to go down.
so yeah, no, but yeah, no. Like I said, I just kind of wanted to come on here and kind of share my experience up there, and like I said, what I've changed since then. I've been working on the last month and a half getting my website redone. We just kind of did it ourselves, to the best of our ability. But I actually hired a company, and they're done with it now. They're just waiting for the transfer over to their server so they can make it go live. And so I've been working on that for the last month and a half or so, and then also gotten on several different chamber of commerce here in the local area. Um, what was it? Hold on. Sorry.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I've got a couple different chambers, and then meeting with some realtors here locally, and just kind of getting ready to do things the right way. Um, if you want, I can go back and kind of start from the beginning, kind of how I got here.
Yeah, let's talk about the
Uh,
origin story. Absolutely.
yeah, yeah. So I was in the Air Force. When I got out of the Air Force, I went and worked at Lockheed Martin. Going from military to a union is a kind of a culture shock.
Yep.
Um, so I knew I didn't want to be there long term. So I started getting my money right, getting everything, getting debt free, getting things ready to go. For whatever opportunity presented itself, I could jump on it. There would be no excuses at that point. And then so COVID hit, and they started talking about make the saying that we had to get the vaccine or we were going to get fired. So I was like, well, it's time to go ahead and get out. And we, my wife's family owns a local moving company, and they they had one franchise that they had, and it came up for sale. So we purchased that, and it didn't go so well. We knew within the first 6 months we're like, okay, this is not what we want to do. We signed a 5-year contract, and obviously you being with the franchise before,
Oh yeah.
it's like you got to do certain things. You have to use certain people. It doesn't matter how um, inefficient it is for your location. You just have to follow certain standards, and so we knew really quickly that we weren't going to be doing this long term. And so we started. I was like, well, what's the exact opposite of moving people's goods, and it's doing junk removal.
Mm-hmm.
We started off originally as dumpsters. It was kind of transformed a little bit. So we got out of that, ended up getting out of that for about 2 years into it. Hired a lawyer, did the whole thing, spent a buttload of money getting out of it. Kind of hit a bunch of different um, challenges along the way where it's, because we had to shut down the business. We bought the trucks, all the equipment, everything during COVID. So everything was, we had to pay way more than what it was worth. So we couldn't sell the trucks. We couldn't sell anything. So a lot of that stuff got repossessed, and we kind of had to start completely over. And with something that turned into, hey, we're going to build this slowly over the next 5 years while we run the moving business, turned into, okay, hey, we've got to do it now. And so that's kind of how we got started into this. So it's been interesting kind of going forward. Obviously, I had never really done junk removal before. I went dumpster diving as a kid, but that's about the closest I got to it. Some guy down in Dallas, I used to work down there, and he was a homeless guy down there. And he's like, talked me to going dumpster diving with him. So that was a cool experience, kind of going through some different things down there. But that was the closest thing I ever got to this. And so we've been building it slowly. I haven't really put much into marketing. The first year I did a bunch of mailers because that's what we did in the moving business, and that worked well for us there. So I did that here, and it just didn't translate the same. It was kind of one of those things where it's like you're not making you're about breaking even on it, right? So you're not getting any friends to come back with your money there. So it's yes. So we kind of stopped doing the mailers, and I've been mainly just word of mouth, whatever realtors I've connected with. And then we also did, this in the moving business. One of the mentors we had there has said basically what you do is you go around to these different businesses, right? And you have interactions with them. You pitch them your company. There's a little elevator pitches, if you will. And then you get their business card, and on their business card you write 1, 2, 3 stars. Obviously there's different methods of doing this, but 1, 2, 3 stars based off of the likelihood that they're going to refer you or use you in the future. And your goal is to get 103 stars, meaning it went phenomenal. They're going to recommend you, they're going to use you, what have you. And so you want to set a number because it's like 103 stars, right? And that's going to be able to get you X amount of return over your slow months and all kinds of stuff. And that's kind of a way to get brand awareness out there, let people know you're here, and then start getting referrals coming in. So we did a version of that with this, going around the different real estate offices, property management, apartment complexes, storage units, stuff like that. And so we've done quite a bit of that in the past. The biggest thing where I've kind of fallen short on that is doing follow-up. So it's not just obviously the initial introduction, but it's going in and finding a reason, like you said in previous episodes, where finding a reason to stop by, once a month or something like that, just kind of pop in, hey, how's it going? Just to stay fresh on their mind. And that's something that, we've got to get a little bit better at here. But, I've not been too concerned about growing super fast. I've kind of wanted to do it nice and slow and steady and kind of build it right. Because, from my experience of jumping into the moving company, it was, when we bought it, it was already had one truck and trailer and then two guys working there. And so I never had to be on the trucks. I never had to do the job. I got to sit back and play chess, So when we came in, we brought in two extra trucks, hired a bunch of guys, and we ended up doing really well financially. For our top line was phenomenal, but as a franchise, we had to pay 6% right off the bat to the corporate office, right? And then if they paid with a credit card, okay, well now you're paying another 3%. And so now you're 9%. And we weren't allowed, they said we couldn't charge, it was a convenience fee because you can't charge a credit card fee. But we couldn't charge a convenience fee to cover the 3% of the credit cards. And so that on those jobs, it's 9% coming right off the top.
Oh yeah.
And if they're military, there goes, which I do a military discount now, but if they're military, that's 10%. They had first responders, teachers getting 10%. They had a whole bunch of realtors that did a lot of business for them, but they didn't do anything for us. Like we had to give them 8% on the off chance that they came from the same real estate group, right? And so it really quickly you go from making, we were at the time we were charging $189 an hour, and that was for one truck and three guys. So $189 an hour, and obviously next thing you know, you're taking off upwards of about it could be as much as about 19% if they're paying with a credit card, comes right off the top. And so you can see how
$40 gone. Yeah, $40 an hour.
Yeah,
poof, gone.
Yeah. Well, and then too, it's like, and then this is obviously during COVID too. So it's like you had diesel. We went from being $2-3 a gallon to being $6-7 a gallon, and a lot of these companies in the local area, they started charging a fuel surcharge, which, and everybody understood. It's just, it is what it is. But we weren't allowed to charge that. We weren't allowed to increase our pay. And so we were just having to eat it. And so it was that plus a lot of other things where it's like, yeah, just I can't make the moves that I want to make or that I need to make in order to make it profitable and to keep us growing at a good rate to make it worth it. Right. So yeah, that's we kind of got out of that, got into junk removal, and but I wanted to make sure with this one that I've been able to be on the trucks, start, be a part of everything, because then it's I'm when I'm sitting here, I'm trying to train my guys. When I was doing it with the moving company, there it was kind of coming from this. Well, the best example I can come up with is, right. So if you ever have a commander right in the military who's never, they were never enlisted, they've never done your job, they've never had anything to do with it. They were just a paper pusher, right? And then they come in here, they say, "Hey, we've got all these ideas, we're changing everything." It's like, go, hold on now. Have you done anything with this before? Have you ever experienced this? Have you ever turned a wrench? Have you done anything? And then the answer is always no, right? But the best commanders were the ones who did the job first. They were either enlisted or they've bloodied their knuckles, right? Yep. Those always made the best commanders. And so that's how I felt. That's where I felt I went wrong with the moving companies. I was never there doing it. I never had to. So whenever I'm trying to coach these guys or train these guys, it's not coming from a place of knowledge. It's just, oh, hey, I own the business, do what I say type of thing. And so it was kind of hard to manage that it was hard to manage that. So, but building this nice and slow, I want to do it the right way. And that's another reason why I came up there. I was by far the least experienced or least qualified person to be coming up there. We're talking about everybody, okay, hey, what did you do last year? What did you do this year type of thing? I was by far the lowest of everybody there, but my biggest thing is I want to have this built correctly from the get-go. I don't want to sit here and get elbows deep in this, and then say, okay, well, hey, now I have to revamp all of this to this new model to make it more efficient or sustainable, and then to make it more green per se. So, um, yeah, that's
Well,
that's kind of the end of my rant.
yeah, no, I appreciate it. And what you said is true. It's I've grown businesses where I've gone faster than the business went. And then you're like,
Mhm.
oh shit, let's retract a little bit. So having done that, having you done that in the moving business, it's not an opportunity for you to go slow and organic to build the company you want today. Today, one of the challenges a lot of people get is they get into it, they start seeing money come in, and they're like, well, as long as the money's flowing, let's not investigate, what's going on. And all of a sudden the money stops flowing. And then they first start looking into the data, right? I'm a data driven guy. I'm an
Mhm.
operations guy, write everything down, figure out what's going right, figure out what's going wrong, make adjustments as needed. I'm a big fan of start, stop, continue methodology of change. And with you, even let's go with the moving company, you're paying almost 20 points of every dollar gone. So $40 out of $189, and you're not allowed to charge more. Something's gonna give. I had a call today with another junk removal company, and I was talking about on this podcast about this podcast in this industry about the only people I hate on are franchises because
Yeah.
most of them are not invested in your future, right? It's either you or
Right.
the next guy that they're going to sell it to. And that was my experience. I was in part of the franchise world for almost 4 years, so that was my experience.
Mhm.
There might be a great franchise out there. I'm all ears, right? I'm open to it. Uh, I'm all about the independent hauler, keeping your dollars,
Mhm.
keeping your shekels, making the choices along the way, bloodying your knuckles. I've seen. I remember there's a local college hunks franchise, and it was owned by this woman. She was a doctor of some sorts, and I asked her about junk removal, and she knew nothing about the industry. And it's like, well, that's not exciting. You saw an
Yeah.
opportunity to make money, you jumped on it. So
Mhm.
that's one of the other reasons I struggle with franchises because it's like anybody with a little, with anybody with a little bit of money can get involved in this industry. And then how interested are they in growing this industry and doing things right versus blindly
Right.
following what the franchisor says and then blindly paying for that privilege. So it's again, I'm all about the small independent haulers. I'm all about supporting guys like you, showing you there's another way. And the other thing you said earlier was you saw all the possibilities of my business and what we've done. It's taken us 9 years to get here. It wasn't like boom overnight we had it
Mhm.
all figured out. So with you, it's like, all right, I went from metal only to now metal and non-ferrous. All right, now I'm starting to take some
Mhm.
electronics. It's like now I got a better vendor for TVs for tires. You said so.
Right. Right.
Continuing to add those vendors in, it's a slow mechanic burn, right? I mean, we're still
Mhm.
9 years in. We're struggling with employees right now. So it's like, all right, when all we do is go back to what we've always done, we're only gonna get the same result. So what other,
Mhm.
new resources do we need to implement in our organization so we recruit the top talent? Right. So there's always an evolution in business. I look at the 6 buckets of business: marketing, sales, operations, the thing you do, resources that are human, and then the numbers. Whichever bucket is lacking, wherever you're struggling, that's where my energy goes as a visionary. So it's like, all right, we're struggling with
Mhm.
employees. All right, let me spend a little bit of time in HR, right? And I don't wait till it bottoms out. It's not like, hey, let's wait until the employees are all gone and pissed off and angry. No, right? We use surveys to see where the employers are at. We're consistently training. We're always hiring because we always know there's better talent out there on the street than there is within our 4 walls. Guaranteed. They're guaranteed there's somebody on the street that's better than my worst guy, right? And I'll say that to the face of
Yeah.
my worst guy. No issues with that.
Right.
And or maybe we keep both of them, and are we good the business to support more people? That's also dope. So it's that constant evolution and at your speed. When you go too fast too soon and you don't learn along the way, then all of a sudden you're sitting there holding the bag all fucked up and you don't even know how you got there in the first place. And that's kind
Yeah.
of what happened with you in the moving company. It's like, oh, this sounds like a good idea. Let's do this. And then it was fucked before you knew it because you didn't even know what questions to ask.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, it was definitely a learning experience. It's one of those things. I don't ever look at anything like that as a failure. I look at it as as a huge learning opportunity. I learned how I didn't want to run certain things, and there are certain aspects that I took away from that I have implemented into my current business. But yeah, no, it's like I said, definitely learning experience. There, like I said, you kind of jump in, put all your money into all this. Like I said, you see this dollar amount. For I'm not going to necessarily say because it's technically family, but I'm not going to say the name of the business. But they they sit there, they bring you in, they show you, hey, this is our QuickBooks page, or this is how much we've made this month. They like, and this was in February, and they're making like $435,000 that month. I'm like, freaking sweet. If I
Yeah.
can just get a fraction of that, yeah, that'd be phenomenal. And we, I mean, like I said, we did a great job. I mean, we were hovering right around the $1 million a year mark, and so we were doing good. But yeah, it was just when your hands are tied on when like you can only hire certain types of people. Like they can't have facial hair. They can't. Obviously, they're yeah, that's no facial hair. Their uniforms. They had to wear like basketball shorts. So like, which I understood. So cargo shorts. Okay, you can scratch somebody's furniture moving it or what have
Yeah.
you. But these are all things where it's like it just made this very a small number of people who are willing to take that job, and you could just keep shrinking it down every time you put these rules in place, right? So no facial hair, certain you can't smoke, you can't. There's a whole bunch of things that you just. But a lot of things I get, but
Are they still in
the
business?
yeah, they're still in business. They don't have any franchises anymore. We were the only one, and when we deuced out, they've been trying to get people to buy their franchises. That's just not working.
Well,
Um,
because
what else?
correct. They have too many rules and not enough guidelines. Guidelines are the
Correct.
key.
Yeah.
Give people the flexibility to operate within the rails versus a rule is you either
Oh yeah.
do it or don't. That's insane. I remember when I was part of the franchise, they wanted to impose all these things, and we're like, yeah, that's not happening. Right? At least they gave us
Yeah.
some of those flexibilities. They're also so grossly incompetent. They really didn't know what the hell they were talking about. So it sounds like at least this franchise was competent, and they were maybe almost too owner centric and too centric about their single location that they couldn't even see beyond themselves. So they just figured, oh, anybody can repeat it. It's like, well, not when you're that anal, right? If you're that anal, it
Right.
works. That's
Well,
fine. Hence why I don't have any franchises because it's not repeatable. That's the key. Not repeatable.
right. Well, and they had this mentor too that he owns the I don't know if it's CRM, but he owns something called Smart Moving, right? So he has a kind of like Jobber, right, where it's
Yeah.
it's the moving equivalent of that, right? So it's but that was their mentor, and he was sitting there, and we had to pay. They forced us to pay every month to be a part of his mentorship, which was fine. But then whenever we tried to implement whatever he was telling us to do, they said, "Well, no, that's not for y'all. That's for bigger companies. That wouldn't work for y'all." And so they would say, "Hey, go talk to this expert," and we'd go to talk to this expert, try to implement what they're telling us to do, and they say, "Hey, no, that's not for y'all. Don't do that. You should do it this way." And so it's like, okay, well, you're like I said, you're not making this easy.
So
um,
how are you growing your company different?
Yeah. So, one, I don't care about facial hair, as you can tell. That's step one. But for me, it's so seeing how you run things up there. Uh, I can tell you that they don't have a fraction of the knowledge about the numbers and stuff like what you were running through in your stuff. It was not to be your personal fluffer today, but that it's impressive to to see how you got things running up there compared to how they had things. So obviously, I'm doing things a lot more geared towards how you're doing it. But as far as from the moving company itself, I do like their scripts they had with a certain way they kind of ran through their phone calls when they came in. It is more. They had a very strict script, like you said, this exact thing, no matter what. Whereas I more or less have kind of bullet points because I don't want to sound too rehearsed or too robotic. I want it to be the personal touch to it, right? So as long as I'm hitting the bullet points, I kind of let the conversation flow a little bit. Just like I said, it gets you that connection, as much as you can get off the phone, not being in person.
Yep.
And so the script aspect of things I like a lot. How they had where you check out tools, you check out equipment, stuff like that. They had that kind of system in place, which obviously you do as well. And so it's having that kind of system put in place is going to be extremely beneficial for me going forward. Um, so I spent a lot of money on lost tools or well, I didn't check that out. So and so check that out or what have you. And so just to get better systems in place from there. Um, and let's see, it's like I said, there's a lot more I've learned what not to do versus what I'm implementing from them. The one good thing I will say about them is they've always done right by their customer, no matter what cost to them. They can sit there. The state at the time, and I say it's been a couple of years now, but the state at the time was required you to do 60 cents per pound per item. So if you had somebody's, $4,000 flat screen TV that you dropped and broke, you're only legally required to get them 60 cents per pound of that TV. So, and those super light TVs, they only weigh like 20 pounds. So you're only getting 60 cents based off of 20, 30 pounds or whatever it is. And so, and that's unless they purchase the extra insurance,
Mm-hmm.
which obviously that's a different story. But no, even if they didn't purchase the insurance, they would always, if their guys messed up, they would always do right and replace the TV or the dresser or whatever they messed up on their dime. And so they always do right by the customer. So, and that's another thing that I'll say about them. They just need to be more like they have different locations and have maybe partners or managers of those locations where they can still control everything and do things the way that they want it. They don't need to have franchises. But yeah, the way they handle their customers um, before, during, and after the move is something I'm carrying over here because it is kind of a notch above the rest. So yeah.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah, that's the whole key is right. What are your takeaways? What'd you learn from the whole operation? What did you learn along the way? Because that's I would argue is more important than what happened, right? And take the good with the bad, and focus on now. Now the flip side to get out of a franchise. Now all the decisions come down to you, and a lot of
Mhm.
junk food companies when they first start, they don't even have a starting point. There's not even the guidance of what to do right or what to do wrong. It's what do I do? And so now you have a
Mhm.
base of right start, stop, continue. What are you going to stop doing that was not advantageous, and what are you going to continue doing that was working for the moving company, right?
Mhm.
Taking care of the customer, good. Refusing to raise your rates, bad. Adjust with the times. I know we raised our rates recently, and I got a screenshot text message on Facebook. Someone said, "Hey, I was quoted this. It was in one of those whatever mom groups or marketplace. Hey, I was quoted this. Does this sound about right?" Like three people chimed in. Yep, use Camo Crew. Yep, that sounds right. Someone else was like, "Yep, I use 800 got junk and it was more than that for less." It's like, all right, so my rates are good, and I know we just raised them. And it's like again, like we used to fuel surcharges. It's like, have you watched the economy
Yeah.
in the last 4 years? No, yes, right. Talk about inflation. We're talking about eggs. Guess what? Things are more expensive. Fuel is finally stabilized. That's good. Fuel. I rarely look at the price of fuel, and I saw recently it was like $2.50 a gallon. I was like, oh shit,
Yeah.
that's nice, right? I know our fuel year to date is down, um,
Oh,
so that's good. So knowing what flexibilities you have, what levers you're going to pull, that's the key. So now this year,
yeah.
what are you
Mhm.
going to do different this year? What are you going to continue doing that's been so what's been working for your business you're going to continue doing, and what are you going to start doing that you haven't done yet?
Yeah, so I've definitely got to get out of my comfort zone. There's and kind of get more disciplined on things. There's something that ripped Jesus said. It's Alex Ramosi, right? So
You
he
steal you steal that
he
shit from me?
yeah.
Rip Jesus, Alex. I can never remember that
That was
guy's name, and
good.
as soon as I'm like Rip Jesus, people are like, "Oh yeah, we know what you're talking about." It's like nice.
Yeah. No, he said you don't lack motivation, you lack discipline, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of hit home for me. And so um, yeah, get more disciplined in my connections, my going to the chamber events, going to do presentations in front of realtors. That's something that's kind of like I said, it's out of my um, realm of comfortability. It's so I've got to do that in order to be successful, right? So it's everybody does the Google ads, which is going to help. I'm going to start doing that as well, but trying to get better at the personal connections is the biggest thing for me. Uh, and that's for me. I have an extremely high close rate whenever I'm face to face with somebody. So if they are wanting the in-person estimate. It's a bigger job, what have you. I've got like I'm sitting at like a 90% close rate once I'm face to face with them, and so I do well in the situations. It's just getting off my butt and going to go do it, and kind of like I said, being more disciplined in those actions. And so the face-to-face interactions, being more, you know, be more willing to do those and get out and do them. And then like I said, I just got the website redone. I'm going to be paying a company to help with the SEO aspect of things, playing the long game there, as well as I'm going to start implementing some of the Google ads and some Facebook ads, stuff like that. And really start getting ready to pour some money into the company to hit the goals that I want to have this year and going forward. Um, and like I said, it's kind of adjusting for how I want to do things now, right? Whereas like recycling and everything, this is one of the biggest jobs I've done so far this year. It took me twice as long as it normally would have because of how to kind of go through and sort everything prior to taking it away. So just kind of adjusting for that a little bit. Yeah, like I said, probably the number one thing is getting more in front of people, doing presentations, and getting my name out in that way. That's something that, like I said, I've kind of avoided like the plague, just because, like, when my wife was a part of some things, I had her go off and do that because that's, she's a lot more social than I am. That's I try to stay out of it as much as I can, but she's a real estate agent now, or a realtor, sorry, and she's off killing it. She's got her own group going now, so she's pretty busy doing that, and so it's one of those things where I've kind of come to the realization that there's um, you got to embrace the suck to a certain extent to be able to take those steps and grow the business the way that it needs to be grown and for longevity. And if it's something that I want to be able to sit back here and go back to playing chess, but now from a point of experience, I have been there, I've done that. I know it. I know how long it takes. So whenever I'm sitting here and training these guys coming in, it's I can still sit back and play chess, which is what I enjoy doing. But now it's coming from a place of knowledge and experience. And so, but in order to do that, obviously, I've got to kind of get off my butt and start doing some things and get more disciplined on going to seeing people. So
Well, I know you're military. When you say embrace the suck, because that's
yeah.
what we do most in the military. Was your wife's real estate business? She had that before or after the moving company?
After, yeah. So
Mm.
that was something that we kind of both started at the same time. She actually joined a group. So we got out of the franchise. She started doing schooling for the realtor stuff, and I started doing junk removal, and that the junk removal, kind of helped bridge the gap
Hmm.
um, in between everything. And then she got with this group here that they're a Zillow Flex team. So I don't know if you know what that is, but basically
No.
Zillow has all these leads. So when you go see a house on Zillow, you scroll down to the bottom like, hey, contact agent. Well, the first contact agent you do, what it'll do is it'll send your information to a local realtor that can help you purchase that house, right? Go show you the houses, and then they can then be your realtor if you don't have one. And then obviously, if you scroll further down and you hit contact agent, you're actually contacting the listing agent.
Yep.
And so to be on a Zillow Flex team, they get all those leads from that first click where they don't have a realtor and they're just trying to buy a house. And so then you get, you pay a pretty penny to Zillow, but
Hmm.
you're you're playing the numbers game, right? So you're sitting there and when she finally got her license, it was August, I believe it was, or her first sale was in August after she got out of her mentorship program. And then, so between the end of August and the end of the year, she did just over 5 million in sales off of Zillow Flex. And so you pay, so they get their 3%, and then you
Yep.
paid 40% of the 3% to Zillow. And then obviously you have
Yeah.
your splits with your team after that. So
Yeah.
to give you an example, on $1 million house, which she's had a couple of, but on $1 million house, you go from $30,000, and her take home was $10,000 when it's all said and done.
Yeah. It
And
was
so,
8,000. Yeah, 8,000 done at 10. Yeah. So you end up taking about 1% when it's all said and done.
right, correct, yeah, like I say,
Not
which
one.
it
Yeah.
sucks, but when you're
Yeah.
sitting there and you're able to have 2, 3 closings a month, then like I say
Yeah.
you're not having to. They call it their like personal sphere, right? Where it's like, oh, you only have so many friends and so many family before it's like nobody's looking to buy right now, and so it's definitely been a benefit for her, and she's done extremely well. Her first year, which was a couple months, she did like I said, just over five, and her first full year, she did I think it was just over nine.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me, 9 million. And this year, she's already gotten I think it's about just a little over 4 million so far this year. And so she's killing it. She's actually, like I said, she's got her own group now. She just started, and she's got her first agent coming on here in like 2 weeks, I think it is. And so yeah, so she's doing great with that. And so and that's another reason too, is that where it's like I haven't necessarily well, I can come up with all the excuses in the world, but I've had all three of the kids because, like I said, we homeschool, and so they go to junk removals with me. Um, and so I get a lot of the free labor out of that. Well, I said my oldest son,
Yeah.
my oldest son has negotiated how much he gets paid per trailer load. Uh, and so luckily for me, he's a terrible negotiator, but so I only pay him like 20, $30 a full trailer, and I'm gravy. So,
Yeah, your numbers and your labor costs are slightly different. I'm sure there's
yeah, yeah, yeah,
child labor laws there in Texas might have something to say about that.
yeah,
Well,
no,
it's
it's
good.
fine.
It's good that you guys. Again, it's also proof that I recovered from a failed business. Failure. I know a lot of people that whether it's junk removal, others like they fail in a business, and then it's like again, it's like bad breakup. It's like you think you're done for it. It's like, well, no, it's the end of a chapter, and it's your choice to
Mm,
turn the page and start writing the next chapter. So the fact that she found real
sorry.
estate through the moving, and now she's obviously passionate
Yeah.
about it. Also with the Zillow, that's just like you said, it's a numbers game. You can either play three. You can either keep 3% of everything, or you can take one
Mm,
percent of something. Right?
right.
It's
Exactly.
it's like, well, take it and go. Now the difference is, this is where I'm very anti Angie's List, anti Thumbtack, anti House Call Pro. No, House Call Pro. Is that? No, not House Call Pro. House Call Pro is the goddamn software. What's the one? Home Advisor. There we go. No, no,
Yeah.
no,
Okay. Yeah.
no issues with House Call Pro. Home Advisor, lots of issues because there you're paying for leads that don't necessarily close. At least with the Zello situation, you're paying a pretty penny. You're only paying it when it closes, so now you're sharing in the risk
Right.
versus
Yeah.
paying for the leads on the front end and then it's all on you. So again, it's not. I mean, everyone gets paid as far how far down the chain you get. Same with trash brokers. I like working with trash brokers. I know they're going to take a shot at my prices. I also know that once they agree on a price, I got the job, right? And it's like, all right, go do it.
Mm,
And they'll keep sending me work so long as I'm a good broker. They're a good broker and I'm a good facilitator. I take care of their customers. I know they're going to keep sending me work, and so that's where people get hemmed up sometimes on percentages or dollars. It's like, well, at what point are you too proud, or not too proud, where you're willing to pay a few dollars to get a few dollars? But that's where I come in.
right.
So I'm all about it. I'm all about any opportunity I have, um, where people take care of me. I'm all about it. So we have some clients that we
Yeah.
have special pricing for because they're consistently feeding us work, and it's a win-win. My customer acquisition cost continues to drive down. I'd rather work with them over and over and over than go chase 50 new customers to have equivalent of the influence they have. Again, it's nearly
Mm,
a numbers game. However you do that. I heard somebody talk about rebates recently. I've heard about people doing rebates or things like that, and I'm like, brass tacks. What's the dollar? Right? What's the value of the service? And then how do we find a
mm,
price that works for both of us? For our residential clients, it's standard pricing. There's nothing changes,
sure.
and so I am all about that when it comes to commercial work. I know some people that charge more for commercial jobs, and some people that charge less
Mm,
based on the relationships. What it comes down to there is what is the value you're bringing, and also what
mm,
what value does that relationship bring you. When I can do six figures with one client, that's a lot of value. It's a lot less people I have to
right.
meet, right? It's a lot of influence I get. It's a lot more of my guys, being out there banging jobs, getting hours, trucks moving, all those things, because that's the practical application of business, not necessarily, the academic version of it. Someone might say, "Oh, I can't believe you're paying all those percentages." It's like, well, what's the alternative? Would you rather
Yeah.
sell, $5 million in houses and make 50 grand, or sell $1 million in houses and make 25 grand or 30,
Right.
right? Because those are your two choices. And it comes down to, in that case, it's real simple. Where in the funnel are you capturing these people? She's playing the game of
Mm,
tons of people in the top of the funnel, and she only pays them at the end. versus putting all the
Right.
time and energy in, maybe not as much work or not as much money, but she's put all the time and
Mm.
energy in on the top end to try to meet people. And then there's no guarantee that they're going to close. And she's already put the
Right.
time, energy, and potentially money when it comes to networking and advertising and all those other means of
Right.
traditional advertising.
Well, too, you've got she's starting to get now because, like I said, she's been in it for this is her second full year she's going to
Yep.
be into it, so 2.5 years, right? And now you're starting to get a bunch of those referrals from those people you paid forty
Yep.
percent for.
Yep.
Now they've got this buddy and so on. So now she's getting a bunch of these referrals, which are to I mean, you're getting at her now she's getting 90% of the 30% with those referrals, and so it's going to be way worth it, especially the longer she's in it. So yeah,
Well, it's slow,
that's like I
well,
said, it's
it's slow and methodic, and
mm,
she built a hell of a network by doing this. And she also got her team and herself exercised on closing houses. It's like I'd rather
yes, yeah.
close 50 houses and make a little bit of money than close 10 houses and make about the same amount of money. And now that's 40 less contacts, that's 40 less opportunities, 40 less experience. Even our team right now,
Oh,
our guys in the field, they're one of the least experienced teams I've ever had going into the spring. They need experience.
yeah. Mm,
Well, the only way they're going to get experience is by putting them on the truck and have them bang jobs. So it's like the sooner we can
yeah.
get the experience, the sooner we can get the guys out banging jobs, the better. Like let's have them banging jobs. And
Right.
same with you. You lacked that experience with the moving company, and now that you have it with the junk removal company, you have a better starting point, a foundational starting point. Like I said, officers with bloody knuckles. In
Yeah.
the military, right? When you have ROTC kids, so kids that go to ROTC, so basically kids that go to college, fake army training for 4 years, they don't know shit about nothing. And then you
Yeah.
have those that go through,
Butterfly.
yeah, butter bars, and then you have those that go through 4 years of college, and then they go to officer candidate school, and then they go, basically like a basic training for officers. They have a little more
Mm,
experience. The best fucking officers are the ones that were E5s, E6s, so sergeants, staff sergeants. They'd been in for
yeah.
and were from like 4 to 8 years. Along the way, they got the bachelor's degree, and in their late 20s, they became an officer. It's like fuck.
Mhm.
Those are the ones I'm gonna, go into hell with. Like absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
One of my favorite officers, he was my PL. Um, when he joined the reserves, his first drill in the reserves, he was an E6. He was staff sergeant, a Marine Corps DI drill instructor. Joined the reserves and as a lieutenant. In his first drill, I was his sponsor because we had, and it's like I met him the first day. I introduced him. I was like, "Hey, you're an officer. Like, you really don't get a sponsor." He's like, "I want you to be my sponsor." I'm like, "All right, dope. Let's hang out all weekend." Right. So I'm an E4, maybe I think it was an E5 at the time. And I'm kicking with him all weekend, showing him basic things. I also drove him around and I'm his driver and all those things. Years later, I was a platoon sergeant, and he ended up being he was our PL for a little bit, and then ended up being the XO of the company. It's like he was dope as hell because he had those 12 years in the Marine Corps ahead of time. And then we knew each
Yeah.
other, when he was day one, and he was humble enough to be like, "Hey, man, I've never been at Fort McCoy." It's like, "Yeah, I'm an
Yeah.
officer." He goes, "That don't mean shit." Like he was, all that means is I have a bachelor's degree. I'm like, "All right, cool." And he also had to learn Army because he went from the Marine Corps to Army, and it was like, well, we have different language. Um,
Right.
so yeah, getting that experience is critical. With
Yeah.
respect to time, because my producer's got to get out of here right at 5 o'clock, so I want to make sure we wrap this thing up an expedient time tonight and we don't go over. What was your top takeaway from today's conversation? Let's get to the big finish.
Mm, yeah. I would have to say, I don't know, just slow and steady wins the race, I guess. Nothing's an overnight success. It's all it takes time and getting things set up the right way from the beginning. And not being afraid to sit there and reach out to somebody like yourself and to figure out, hey, how they're doing things, and so you can model it, for the most part, the same way, so that way you can try to achieve the same things, and so yeah.
Yeah, no, yeah, I love what you're saying there because that's what it comes down to. What it comes down to is that slow and steady. In the military, we say slow is smooth, smooth is fast, fast is good. A lot of people in this world want to get that quick, fast money. It's not going to be the case.
Hmm.
I've now celebrated 9 years full time junk removal, 16 years in this industry, and I'm still learning shit. And right now, I
Yeah.
feel like I have the best business I've ever had. I have the best leadership team by far. We're getting the guys, we're getting the right people in the field. doing the thing. We got this great base of customers. We got a great base of revenue. And so, yeah, it is that slow and steady, and it takes time. For the guys that are looking to chase a buck today, they're never going to find themselves out of their truck because they're only living for today. It's about what does your business look like in the future, and what do you need to do today to make that business of the future a reality, to plant those seeds today. So there's my takeaway. All right, coming up, no guest next week as it sits right now. No guest next week. You want to be a guest on the Trash Talk Business Podcast? Go to trashtalkbusinesspodcast.com. Apply to be a guest. In 2 weeks, we have Jamie Fiez family. No idea who this person is. One says I should know. I have no idea. Moving forward, cleanouts at Gmail. That's her Gmail. Jamie or him. I don't know. That's how we do things around here. So 2 weeks from today, we got a guest. Next week, no guest. So you want to be a guest on the Trash Talk Business Podcast next week, 1600, 4 p.m. Central Standard Time. Hit me up, Facebook, LinkedIn, hit up the website, hit up Taylor, hit somebody up so we have a guest next week so we can learn about you and your journey, so we can share what you learned in this industry with other people in this industry as we continue to grow and build this amazing industry. Austin, any last words for the good of the audience?
I'll have more to say in the next time. I was hesitant to come on, just I didn't want to, I didn't feel like I had too much to contribute, but no, I just want to say I appreciate you doing the show and appreciate not quitting it back when, and I'll see you next time.
Absolutely. No. Well, that's what everyone's journey is important. Everyone's origin story, how we got in this industry, where we're going. It's important. You never know. There's probably something you're going to say today that triggers somebody else. And maybe somebody that hasn't gotten in the industry yet, and you giving them that little oomph, right? Also stressing that point that, businesses fail, and the sooner we can recover from it and learn from it, we get on down the trail and we get on to our next adventure. So appreciate you being vulnerable. Appreciate you coming on. Everybody has a story, and that's what's interesting. That's why I love doing what I do. It's 9 months now since I said I'll continue the show as long as we have an audience, as long as we have guests. And so far, we have an audience and we have guests. So the show will go on. All right. On behalf of Austin, our guest, Taylor, my producer, I'm Andy Weins. This has been another amazing week of the Trash Talk Business Podcast. We will see you next week.
Thanks for listening. Tap subscribe or follow to get the latest episode. And if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to leave us a review and tell a friend to listen. To learn more, visit trashtalkbusinesspodcast.com. Bye now.